Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first session of Life and Air Debt-Free Investing. I'm so happy that we're finally getting this started. I'm so excited about this. And Steve, you're on the line, right?
I'm here, Joe.
Awesome. Guys, put on your bootstraps. Get ready to go because Steve's got so much really, really good information to share here. Get out your pen, get out your paper, turn off your distractions, turn off Facebook, turn off Twitter. We're really going to be diving into a lot of meat and potatoes here in this first of 4 sessions. And, Steve, I'm just going to listen, and I may interject a few times with questions here or there, ask you to clarify something, but the show is yours. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready, and I do want to encourage you, Joe. If any questions do pop up, please go ahead and ask them. I want this to be as thorough as we can possibly be, and I'm ready to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, one more thing that reminds me, too, guys. We have a section at the bottom where you can put in comments. So if you have questions, you can put in questions in the comment section in there. Steve and I will do our best to try to answer them. But we're also going to have a Q&A call that we'll be announcing soon, or that may be already on this page that you're looking at. We're going to be having a live question and answer coaching call after these sessions. We're done recording these sessions that you guys can call in and listen to. And so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, go ahead and leave some questions and comments down below this video, and Steve and I will do our best to get to them. But with that said, Steve, let's dive in. I'm excited about this.
Sounds good. Let's go ahead and get started. I think one of the first things, just there may be some people who are on this webinar who don't know who I am yet. I have started investing in 1998. I have done over 450 single-family home real estate deals. I've done all different kinds of deals, anything from rent-to-own, lease options, wholesaling, rehabbing, owner financing. I've been a hard money lender. I've just done so many different types of investing. I started out my investing career in the Baltimore, Maryland area. I moved to Wisconsin back in 2009. The purpose of that move was very much a lifestyle move, just to come here and enjoy life, enjoy my family, enjoy my kids. I for years tried slowing down as a real estate investor, but it was difficult for me when you're good at doing something and being in a market where you're very well recognized. It was hard for me to slow down, but since coming to Wisconsin, I really have experienced a blessed life. I've got a wonderful family. I have a wife and 5 children. And one of the reasons that I teach debt-free investing today is because I want others to be able to experience the life that I experienced when I decided to change my business and go with this debt-free model. It completely flips my life upside down for the better, and that's something that I share with many others today. So one of the things that I want everybody to understand of what we're going to do here, and we've got 5 different sessions here, and I'm changing this up a little bit, but the way that we're going to approach this is that session 1 we're going to be dealing with why debt-free investing, the philosophies behind it. Session 2 is going to be about joint ventures. Session 3 is going to be about building free and clear rental portfolios. Session 4 is going to be dealing with private money. And session 5 is actually going to be our question and answer session. And we're going to go into some great detail with the question and answers, helping you work through the forums, and how do we actually do this debt-free investing. So I want everyone, as we go through these sessions, whatever questions you have, write them down, because we want you to be prepared for that question and answer session so that you can take as much advantage of that as possible. So what we're going to cover today in session 1 is why debt-free investing. We're going to discuss the philosophy behind debt-free investing, what makes debt-free investing work, and why it is so powerful. We're also going to get into the 4 stages to debt-free prosperity. And this is something that for years I had been teaching, but not, it wasn't very succinct. It's sort of been all over the board. And it hasn't been that long ago, Joe, that I finally just came up with this sort of aha and was able to take this whole idea of debt-free investing and these 4 stages and put it into something much more concise that I could teach. And since I've been doing that, all of my students have been having this aha moment, and they've been just realizing, okay, everything Steve has been teaching us is really starting to make sense now. And admittedly, I've been a student of my own teaching as I've been going along here. I've been learning how to teach it better, and it just keeps getting clearer as we go.
Steve, I was going to say, when you first, on one of my coaching calls with you, you brought up the 4 stages of listening, and it was an aha moment for me because I love simple step-by-step stuff, you know. And what you've done with these 4 stages is just broken it down into something that you can write down in 4 sentences, pretty much, and explains kind of the whole process of becoming a lifeonaire and being financially free, in a sense, in just these 4 stages. And that's the great thing about this, is that you simplified it and made it more digestible. So I think this is great.
Well, and I'm hoping that now as I go through this here today that this is very clear for everyone. And Joe, I want to encourage you, if I'm not being very clear with it, jump in and ask me to clarify points. And for those of you who are listening in, write down your questions, because this is really very simple. And I focus on prosperity through simplicity. We'll talk about some of that here soon, but we tend to complicate things, and hopefully I'll make it simple for you. So what I'm going to share with you today goes against most everything that you have ever been taught about becoming successful in real estate investing. It goes against the grain. It's going to be sort of bucking the trend of what you have learned before. Most that we have been exposed to has been wrong teaching, and I'm going to share with you why it has been wrong. We're going to discuss these 4 stages to debt-free prosperity, and you're going to understand what I mean as we go through this, why everything that you have been taught up until now has been wrong. That there's been a lot of good things in everything that you have learned, but the bottom line is you'll discover that the processes and how we've been approaching it have not been right, and they've actually been taking us down the wrong path. But I want to just ask all of you, I want you all to just take 1 minute. I want you to think about everybody that you know personally that is living the lifestyle that you desire to have. Now, Joe, I want you to think about this for a moment as well. How many people do you know personally who live a lifestyle that you would trade for, that you would like to have? Can you think of anybody?
I can think of my father from a he has a great business with a lot of freedom. But, I mean, it's hard to question the answer because I mean, people that we know really well, we also know their faults. But as far as like living financially free, the only person I can think of is possibly you. My dad's another one. When I think of successful business people that are very wealthy out there that I know in the business, I don't know anybody that is living a lifestyle that I want to have. There's something to be said about simplicity, something huge. I mean, it is so valuable, I guess. I'm struggling to find my words, but simplicity, prosperity through simplicity. I'm excited to hear you talk about that because once you guys figure that out and hear what Steve has to say, it's revolutionary. It really is.
Well, I want everybody to have an open mind as we approach this, because when I ask that question, if I'm standing in front of a room of 150 people, and I've done this before, so these are going to be real numbers that I share with you, and I ask that same question I just asked you, Joe, the first thing I'll do is I'll ask everybody who's in this room that can think of 3 people, raise your hand. And we're lucky if we have 3 to 5 people in that room who can think of 3 people or more who are living a lifestyle that they would like to live. And same thing goes, if we drop the number to 2, we might get a few people who know 2 people. There may be a dozen or so people in the room who know of 1 person, but the large majority of the people in that room can't think of a single person who is living the lifestyle that they would like to live. Now, the thing that is crazy about that is we can't think of anybody who's living a lifestyle that we would like to live, yet we do the same thing as all of those people who are around us. have to ask yourself this question. If everything that we have been learning and all the things about success were true, we should be able to come up with long lists of people who are living the lifestyle that we would like to live. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, yes, I would. And you're not talking about lifestyle like living on the beach and having a fancy boat and living in the mountains or whatever. You're talking about happiness. You're talking about contentment, about having you might want to give a little context of the whole life in there concept, because you're not talking about, like I said, having a bunch of things and having that kind of a lifestyle. You're talking about being just... Right.
And we're going to get to that here in just a moment. The key is that I want people to really think about the life that they want to live. And the fact of the matter is that when we look at all the people who we currently know and that we surround ourselves with, we don't really know anybody who is living the life that we want to live, yet we copy them. We do the same thing as them. We go to the same classes. We read the same books. We do all of the same things. And if everything that we have been exposing ourselves to was right, if it was true, if it did work, the list of people we'd be able to come up with would be extensive. But the facts are we cannot come up with long lists of people because we're all doing things the wrong way. So what I'm going to share with you today is going to shake your financial intellect, because I'm going to tell you that we're doing things the wrong way and it bucks the system. This is why I want everybody to have an open mind, because this is going to be completely different than what you have learned from anybody else in the past. We need to change our mindset. We've got to change the way that we think. We have to change the way that we run our businesses, and we need to change the way that we experience our lives. Now, the allure of money, what's the allure of debt and leverage? And what do you think it is, Joe? Why do people like debt and leverage?
Well, I think a lot of us, I know in my own personal experience, I had the idea that there's good debt and there's bad debt, and if you can get into debt that produces cash flow, or debt that gives you assets that produces cash flow, that can be a good thing. And, maybe you could make an argument for buying a house or college education or whatnot, but I doubt that. That's suspicious. But sometimes the allure of debt is getting things that you think might make you happier, might make you more successful, when in reality it doesn't. It entraps you into further debt, which is the last thing you want to be in.
Mm-hmm. Well, the bottom line is that debt and leverage allows us to fake success.
Yeah,
it allows us to look wealthy quickly by getting the things that we would normally take a long time to buy. And then we have this whole idea of passive income, that if we can use debt and leverage appropriately, that we can have passive income and not have to work. So it allows us to fake it, and it allows us to look wealthy when we're not wealthy. It allows us to experience things today that we cannot experience any other way. And it takes the idea of waiting for things out of the equation. What we truly desire to experience is freedom, and there's no one out there who pursues debt with the intent of being in bondage. Nobody ever goes into debt hoping that they'll be in bondage. Most people blindly go into debt thinking that this debt is going to give them freedom. Now, debt does not lead to freedom. We're discovering that more and more. The Americans are discovering that more and more. And freedom, if freedom is what it is that we truly desire, then debt is not the right path to get that, because debt is actually what takes our freedom away. And so as I sit here and I teach these concepts, the one thing that I want people to truly understand is that a lifeonaire is somebody who lives life on their terms. They have the freedom to experience an abundant and prosperous life. A lifeonaire is like a millionaire, except it's somebody who's full of life. And a lifeonaire is someone who has the freedom to just go off and do the things that they want to do. They're not controlled by all of these outside circumstances that dictate how they have to live their life. And ultimately, as I challenge people, I discover that this is what they truly want. They want the freedom to live. It's not necessarily having the most things. In fact, I heard a quote one time that the richest man in the world is the one who needs the least. The person who needs the least, if you need nothing, everything that you have is abundant. But when we need a lot, it's hard just to make those ends meet. And then in order to have abundance, we have to have over and above our needs in order to have abundance. And this will start to make a little more sense as I go further into this. So I challenge people with this question: what does prosper mean to you? And the dictionary definition of it is to be fortunate or successful, particularly in terms of one's finances. But then I'll go and I'll ask this question. And in front of a room of people, I'll ask, if there's somebody who makes $1 million per year, would you consider them to be prosperous? When I ask that question of a room of people, just about every person in the room says, yes, I would consider that person to be prosperous. And then I'll ask them, well, if there's a person who makes $50,000 a year, would you consider them to be prosperous? And immediately everyone says, no, I would not consider that person to be prosperous. And what we're doing is we're equating prosperity with an amount of money. And an abundance of money is someone who we would consider to be more prosperous. But if I throw a different twist into this equation, I say, okay, the person who makes $1 million a year needs $1.5 million a year just to make ends meet. Would you consider that person to be prosperous? And all of a sudden, people look at that $1 million a little bit differently because it's not enough. And most people have experienced at some point or another in their life when they did not have enough to make ends meet, and you do not feel prosperous in those times. However, I'll throw into the twist into this equation with the $50,000 a year. If that person only needs $25,000 a year to get by and live a good life, would you consider them to be prosperous? And then immediately most people would consider that person to be prosperous because they have more than what they need. And so this helps to put people into the right mindset. It's not necessarily having an abundance of money, but it's having more than what you need that makes someone prosperous. Does that make sense, Joe?
Steve, it does. And one thing I'll add, too, is let's say your income was $1 million a year, but what you needed was only $1 million a year. Would that person be prosperous? Absolutely not, because that person is living paycheck to paycheck. And, they every month they're just breaking by, and they're under a tremendous amount of stress to come up with that money every month, So I would argue also, in addition to what you're saying, that even if your expenses that you needed were $1 million, exactly what you were making, the person who is making $50 but only needs $25,000 is way more prosperous than the one who's making $1 million to feed $1 million expense budget. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and I've been there, and I've coached many people who are in that position, and there's something to be said about keeping things simple and needing not a whole lot. So the definition of prosper, it's to be fortunate or successful, particularly in terms of one's finances, but I think that we can add that it's not necessarily an amount of money, but more importantly, how one lives. Because a person who makes $50,000 a year but only needs $25,000, that person sleeps well at night. That person has excess. That person can do many things above and beyond just what their needs are, whereas the person who makes $1 million a year but needs much more, that person doesn't sleep well at night. While they might get to stay in nice places and eat expensive meals and things like that, that person has a whole lot of stress in their life, and they really don't have a peace. They don't have a freedom to do what they want to do. So like you said, Joe, even the person who makes $1 million and spends $1 million, they're just living paycheck to paycheck. And those of us who are listening in on this webinar right now, we know when we're in that position, the last thing in the world that we are considering ourselves is prosperous. It's hard enough just to be thankful that our needs are being met, but feeling prosperous in that situation is something that most of us don't experience. We don't feel that prosperity. So freedom versus bondage. The effects of debt are devastating to life. When we're deep in debt, it controls everything. It controls what we think about, how well we get along with relationships, those closest to us. It controls how much we work, where we work, whether or not we go on vacation, how long we go on vacation, whether or not we enjoy our vacation. It controls our health. The one thing that we desire is freedom and life, and many of us try to pursue freedom and life through debt. The one thing that steals that freedom and life from us. So I would like for everybody who is listening on this webinar right now to take out a dollar bill. And we're just going to go through a little exercise that really helps get an understanding of money. And I want you to just take out that dollar bill, and I want you to study it. Take some time, just look at it, and think about what it is that you see. And I want you to look beyond the paper. Now, Joe, you've actually seen me do this in a room full of people before, and I start to ask people, what is it that you see when you look at that dollar bill? And, they call out all different things. They say, in God we trust. I see a note. Some people say, well, it's a dollar bill, but what I see is 28 cents, and, they're joking about the dollar not having much value. And they call out all different things. But when I look at it, the thing that I see is an employee. I see an employee that works 365 days per year. It works 24 hours per day. It never stops working. Sometimes it's working hard. Sometimes it's not working very hard. But the bottom line is it is always working. If you take dollar bills and you bury them under your mattress, it's still working. Inflation is working against it at that time. It's not doing anything for you. But the bottom line is the dollar bill never stops working. It's an employee. And what we want to know is, who is your master? Is money working for you, or is money working against you? And I want to just suggest this. If you think about money often, it is likely your master. And that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. But if you're thinking about money often, more than likely it masters you and you have not mastered it. And one of the key things to this whole program that we're putting together here is to help you understand money, to help you master money, and to take advantage of this debt-free investing program so that you can master your life and experience the abundant and prosperous life that you would like to do. So there's a lot of people who sit here and tell me that, look, I'm in debt, but I master money. Money doesn't master me. I'm going to just challenge you with this. If you truly think that that's the case, go ahead and miss a couple of payments on your debt, and you will quickly find out who your master is.
That's funny. That's really good. I love that.
If just because you're making your payments on time, your master is quietly sitting back and collecting those payments. You will find out who your master is if you miss a couple of payments. And there's plenty of people in this country right now who clearly know. Now, the good news is this, is that money is neutral. We can make the decision to master it. And all we have to do is make that decision. It does not have to master us. And it's not like it's a hard thing for us to master. We just have to make the decision that we are going to master money, be firm in that decision, and we can master it. Now, if you don't make that decision, money will master you. It's not just by happenstance we can be the master of money. It doesn't work that way. You have to make a conscious and intentional decision to master money. If you do not, it will master you. So it's your choice. Remember that. And I'm hoping that all of you make this decision. Now, to put this into a little bit different perspective, I want you to understand what a mortgage really says. When you decide that you want to purchase a home or go into debt, one of the things that many of us end up doing is, because we can't afford that home, we end up going to a lender. And so we'll go to the lender and we'll say, Mr. Lender, I can't afford, I would like to purchase a home, however, I can't afford to purchase it. And I was wondering if you would put the money up so that I can live in this home. Now, what the lender does is the lender says, you know what, we'll go ahead, we'll check you out. They have you fill out credit applications, provide them with all kinds of information, and they pull your credit report, they do background checks on you, and then at the end of the day, they make a decision. And if you look like you're a good prospect for them to put the money up for, basically what they say to you is this. They say, Joe, you look like you're a pretty good servant, and we'll be happy to put the money up for you. And they provide you with the mortgage documents, and these are documents that you have to sign. And basically what those documents say, it says, Joe, we will put up the money for you so that you can live in this home. and we'll put this money up provided that you promise to serve us with 25 to 40% of your working hours for the next 30 years of your life. And they say that if you faithfully serve us for the next 30 years of your life, we will allow you to peacefully enjoy that home. However, if at any point over the course of the next 30 years you fail to faithfully serve us, we will throw you out of that house and we will sell it to somebody else. The bottom line is the home is not yours. But what those documents say is that after 30 years of faithful service, then they will let you have that home. But even after 29 years of faithful service, if you fail to faithfully serve them, they can throw you out of the house and they will sell it to somebody else. And they'll make sure that they recoup all of their monies and the service that you were supposed to have given to them. So once we sit there and we look at a mortgage that way, it becomes something completely different. But we live in a world that tells us that mortgages are good. They refer to debt on houses as good debt. And these are different lies that we believe. And some of the other lies that we believe is passive income. Many real estate investors want to go off and pursue this passive income, this dream of, having this income that we do not work for. Joe, you've owned rental properties. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. And the whole thing of the house being our greatest asset, it's a bunch of baloney. Yeah, a house is not an asset. It's a liability.
It is.
So I've had lots of rental property in the past. And
has that ever been passive income?
Never.
And I have never come across a single family home landlord yet that tells me that income is passive, that they do nothing, and that they just make this money. And, sometimes you get a house or two where your tenants are just a breeze and they're great and they make life very easy for you. But the bottom line is landlords work for that money. And the idea behind passive income is that it's money that you don't work for. And every single time you add another rental portfolio or another property to your rental portfolio, you're increasing the amount of time that you need to work in order to earn that income. So passive income when it comes to single-family homes is a lie. The IRS deems it as passive income, so we deem it as passive income, but there's no truth to it. We work for that money and landlords work for it. Another lie that people buy into is this interest and this tax write-off from interest. We have accountants telling people, go get the bigger mortgage because it's your biggest tax deduction. You want to have that write-off. Well, what they're basically telling you is this: go get a big mortgage, pay $1 to the bank so that you can write off about 30% against about 30 cents against your taxes. So pay $1 so you can save 30 cents. And for those of us in lower tax brackets, they might only be saving 15 cents or 20 cents, but pay $1 to the bank so that you can pay the government 15 or 20 cents less. That, to me, is one of the most foolish things I have ever heard. When I first started talking to my accountant about paying off my mortgage, he was telling me not to do it because I would lose the tax write-off. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then another lie that we have bought into when we do evaluate opportunities such as rental properties and what our cash flow will be is that there's one ingredient that is never a part of those formulas. We look at those formulas and we say, oh, this is a great return on my money. The one ingredient that we never evaluate is the amount of time that we have to put into these deals and these projects in order to get that return. There's been many people who have been fooled by what the numbers say, and then when they realize after they get into the deal how much time that they have to put into it, they're making less than minimum wage. The return on their time is something that is not worth their while. So the return on time is an ingredient that no accountant and no spreadsheet ever figures up. You need to be aware of the fact that every deal that you do is going to take up some of your time. And just to put that into perspective, when somebody presents me with an opportunity now, the very first thing that I want to know, and this is more important than how much money is this deal going to make, I want to know how much of my time is it going to take. And if it's going to take up more of my time than I'm willing to give, I couldn't care less how much money it's going to make. I don't even get to that portion of evaluating the deal. because what's most important to me is keeping control of my life, having the freedom to do what I want to do, and I don't want to bring deals into my life that are going to take up a lot of my time and take away from the things that are most important to me. So one of the things that we talk about is less being more in this whole idea of debt-free investing. There's a lot of people who just don't think that less can be more. But less work equals more life. The less time that I have to spend working, doing, or earning income, the more time I have to enjoy life. This is a very real thing. Less debt equals more freedom. So the less deals that I get involved with that require me to go into debt, the more freedom that I have to do what I want to do with my life, the less time that I'm actually promising away to a lender in service to them. And then less stuff, less deals, less stuff in my life is less responsibility. I don't have to have, and it gives me more time. If I'm not responsible for managing so many different things, I have more time to do what I want to do with my life. So most of us end up finding ourselves in bondage to business. The actual purpose of our business should be to serve us and our life and our vision. However, most of us never build a business with this in mind. We build a business with the intentions of making as much money as we can, hoping that one day we can experience and enjoy life. We do things backwards. And as I was alluding to earlier, that we do things the wrong way, this is the problem that so many of us have experienced with all of the teachings, is that we're being taught to go out there and create wealth, and we're not focusing on the things that are most important to us, which is our life. We put earning wealth and money before experiencing life. Now, I have went from freedom to being deep in bondage and back to freedom again. And my story and the reason why I went debt-free starts with going back to my restaurant business. I had, at a young age, I had opened up a couple of restaurants. My restaurants are doing well, but I was working these restaurants so many hours every week. I bought the restaurants thinking that they were my ticket to freedom, they were my ticket to wealth, and that I was going to retire early because of these restaurants. And what I found when I got into my restaurants was that I was working 80 to 90 hours a week, and I was only being compensated as if I was working one full-time job, and sometimes I wasn't even able to take that check. And it was something that really, in time, I just wore out. I couldn't keep it up anymore, and my restaurants ended up going under. Well, then I got out of the business, jumped into real estate investing, and it took me a couple of years to really get this real estate thing under, get control of it, to really start making money with it. But once I discovered how to do it, I started making money hand over fist. I started making tens of thousands of dollars every month. Once I discovered this, my average month was somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 in net profits every month. And the beauty of that was that at that time, my investing career, having just come out of this failed restaurant business, I didn't have any debt. I had paid off the debts from my restaurant, but because my credit was shot, I couldn't go out there and buy big houses and a bunch of cars and all these things. If I was going to do anything, I had to pay cash, and I had the cash to do it. So I want you to just put this into perspective for a moment. Here I am making $40,000 to $60,000 a month, and my bills, my needs from month to month were $2,000 a month. That was all I needed to make ends meet. Now, think back to that $1 million a year scenario and the person needing $1.5 million. Now, how would you like to be somebody who makes $40,000 to $60,000 a month and you only need $2,000? And I'll just ask you, Joe, do you think I was free at that time in my life? Do you think I could do whatever I wanted to do?
Well, not only were you free, but you felt free.
I was completely free.
Oh, yeah.
And now, in that position, the one thing that I wanted to do, because it was sort of overwhelming to me, I would give away money like there was no tomorrow. I'd help people who needed help. I was giving to charity, and I wanted to be wise with my money. So I went off and I sought counsel. I started talking to accountants and my pastor and estate planners and attorneys and other real estate investors. I was asking everybody, what should I be doing with my money? And basically the message I was getting from everybody was about the same thing. Now I'm starting to be able to build my credit up again. I've got a lot of cash in the bank, and I'm being told, well, Steve, here's what you do. You go off and you start building a rental portfolio and go buy a really nice house for yourself and get the mortgage on the house so you can get the tax write-off. And I did all of these things that everybody told me to do. We came up with a plan. I executed the plan perfectly. Within a few years, I had the mansion. I had my rental portfolio. I had $7 million in assets that I had accumulated within 3 years' time. And the problem was everybody sitting there looking from the outside, looking in, and everybody thought I was just doing fantastic. Everybody wanted to be just like Steve. They wanted to learn to do what I was doing. They thought everything I touched turned to gold. Then I hit the wall. And when I hit the wall, I felt just like I was back in my restaurant business working 80 to 90 hours a week. All of a sudden, my business was controlling me. All of a sudden, I came to realize that these debts that I accumulated on all these rental properties and all of my toys and my beautiful homes and my vacation homes were now dictating my life. I no longer have the freedom anymore. And I needed to just get back out of that. And I had this realization after doing that for a couple of years that I once had life, and then I had given it up, and now I wanted that life back again. When things were simple and I didn't have this big real estate empire, that's when I experienced life. I knew how to make money, and I still knew how to make money, but now I was making money for a different reason. I was making money because the lenders demanded it of me, and I had to get it out there. And I want everybody to just understand this. In 2001, this was my start, I had $40,000 or more per month in income. I didn't have any bills because of my bad credit, and life was incredible. It was simple. I could do anything that I wanted to do, and I could go anywhere I wanted to go. I could have anything I wanted to have. Now, during my growth, I went out and I talked to all the professionals. They gave me all this counsel, and I did exactly what they told me to do. I executed the plan perfectly. So I bought the mansion, the vacation home, the rental portfolio, $7 million in assets in 3 years, and I did everything right, and I was living that dream. Then I hit that wall. I was working over 60-plus hours per week, and at this point in my career, I had to get deals done. This is the big difference from before I built up this real estate empire. I didn't have to do anything. Now I had to get deals done. And before I could do things, and I could do things freely. I could enjoy everything I did. Now I could still do things. I still had the time, the resources to go out there and do things, but I was no longer enjoying the things that I was doing because I had all this pressure running the business. So here's what happened. In 2001 versus 2004, when I made $25,000 doing a real estate deal in 2001, that was enough to cover my expenses for the entire year. So in 2001, within the first 3 weeks, I had already made enough money to cover my bills for the entire year. Now, everything I made for the rest of the year, I was free to do whatever I wanted to do with it. In 2004, in 2005, in 2006, when I did a deal and I made $25,000, it was enough to get me through 2 weeks. So the big difference between 2001 and 2004. In 2001, $25,000 got me through a year. 2004, 5, and 6, $25,000 got me through 2 weeks. 2001, I had freedom. Once I did everything the right way, once I listened to everyone and played by all the rules and did all the right things with my money, $25,000, I was in bondage because it would only every 2 weeks I had to do that all over again. And I had to keep doing it over and over and over again. I was being mastered by my money. I was being mastered by my debt. I was mastered by my business. I was not the one in control. They were all controlling me. So I want everybody to understand this. It's your life. You get to make the decision, and I want to encourage all of you to set yourself up to win. I had to take on this completely different mindset that in order for me to win the game, I needed to be the one who made the rules, and I needed to make the rules simple. I had complicated things. I made everything very difficult. So you get to make the rules, and it's your choice. You can make the game of life simple, or you can make the game of life difficult. You choose. If you make it difficult, you'll make it much more harder to win. I want to encourage all of you to focus on prosperity through simplicity. 2001, my life was very simple. So everything that I made was excess, and I could live a fantastic and wonderful life. So here I want to get into this 4 stages of prosperity. And this was something that I just came up with earlier this year. It was something that I have been teaching, but never as concise as the way I'm about to put it now. Stage 1 is where you set yourself up to win. This is where you come up with a plan and put the foundations in place. Stage 2, you generate the cash to meet your needs. Stage 3, this is where you generate excess cash that you can begin to invest into wealth and income, which is in stage 4. So we're going to go through this here in a little more detail. Stage 1 is setting yourself up to win. You must have a written plan for your life. Most of the people who I come across never, ever plan their lives out. They have no idea what it is that they want out of life. Furthermore, if they've given any thought to it, it's not written. So therefore, it's moving all the time. It moves with the idea of the week or the idea of the day. Every time they hear something different, they have a new plan for their life. So they're never moving in one direction. This is a tough thing for people to do. Most people equate life with going out there, making as much money as you can, and then figure out what to do. Where at Life and Air, we teach you how to come up with a life vision of what it is that you want your life to look like, and you're going to experience that life whether or not you make a lot of money. But we're going to experience life with or without the money. Hopefully we'll do it with the money, and then we can experience a whole lot more. But the bottom line is, typically what Americans do is we go off and we work and we work and we work, hoping that one day we can retire and then enjoy life. We take the backwards approach, and we say, enjoy life now. Why wait for retirement? Let's live life. Let's experience it. Let's enjoy it. And, we can work on building wealth at the same time. And that's the whole Life and Air plan. We do that by helping you to come up with a Life and Air vision for your life. Knowing what it is that you want out of life, coming up with a plan, having it written so that it doesn't get changed with a new idea of the day or the idea of the week. And this is the foundation for your life. This is where most people go wrong. Most people never come up with a written plan for their life. They simply let life happen, and they endure whatever comes their way. They're not experiencing life, instead they're enduring life. And this is the most important thing that you can do if you want to live life like a Life and Air. If you're going to live life like a Life and Air, you have to be deliberate and intentional. You need to come up with a written plan so that you can begin to experience that life, not wait till someday. So my story is this. My simple, prosperous start was an accident as a real estate investor. When I came out of my restaurant business, I couldn't get into debt. I couldn't borrow money. Nobody would give me anything. My credit was pathetic at that time. So that forced me into a simple lifestyle. I did just what I could do, and I was very, very fortunate. I didn't really have a plan. I wasn't planning on living a simple life. And when I started making really good money and built a good business, it was only by accident that I happened to be in that situation. The moment I started planning and doing all the right things, and I say that tongue-in-cheek because all the stuff that people taught me was the right thing to do ended up being the wrong thing. The intent behind it was that if I did all of that, I was going to live a great life. I did it all, and what it did was it robbed me of life. I focused on my business and making money, and I stopped focusing on living life. And that is the part that we do backwards. That is the wrong part of all of the teaching that most of us have experienced. Now, stage 1, one of the things that we do provide, and this is a bonus for anybody who is purchasing this webinar, is that you will get my 16-week Life and Air webinar as a bonus. That 16-week Life and Air webinar will help you to develop a Life and Air vision for your life. It will take you through a process that nothing else out there has ever done for you. It will help you to plan your life so that you can then begin to design the right business to help you live the life that you want to live. We also do live Life and Air events. For some people, it's better for them to just come to a live event for a couple of days and just really plow through this and come up with that foundation for their life. But you cannot do this without being very deliberate with coming up with a life and air vision. Every one of my students who says, Steve, I'll get to that. I need to do my business first. I'll get to my life first. They're the ones who are lagging behind. All of my students who embrace this life and air vision process and coming up with a vision for their lives, they are in a much better position to build the right business to help them live the life that they want to live. And they're the ones who, on the scale of success, are the ones that are skyrocketing. Everyone who wants to put off living life and put off this life and air vision process is simply doing that. They're putting life off. They may get out there and start building a business, but they're miserable with their business, regardless of how well their business is doing, because they're not living life. So I want to encourage you that this is the most important part, is getting through stage one. This is where you get to make the rules for your life and how, on the terms that you're going to live life under. And if you make it simple, you're going to make things much easier. So you have to keep this in mind. It's your life. You design it. You make the rules. Keep it simple. Focus on prosperity through simplicity. And you can make it complicated. The more complicated you make it, the tougher it's going to be, because once you have your foundation in place, you're going into stage two. And stage two is where we generate the cash to meet our needs, to live this life that we're putting into place. Now, everybody finds themselves at stage two at some point or another. We all end up being here. This is a stage that you can't avoid. We all have to make ends meet. Somehow, somewhere or another, we've got to bring in the money to live life. And, when we're doing that and we have a deliberate plan in place, then there's a real purpose behind that money that we're earning. For some people, they just haphazardly let things happen, and they never actually experience a good life. But this is where you earn the cash that you need to live the life that you designed in stage one. So if you make stage one complicated, you're going to make it difficult on yourself to win in stage two. The simpler stage one is, the easier you make your life, the easier you plan that you design for your life in stage one, the easier it's going to be in stage two. So I want to encourage all of you to set yourself up to win. Make it simple. Make it easy to win. This is the money that you actually work for. You're trading your time for this money. And I want you to think of it this way. When you trade your time, you're actually trading your life away. For some of us, we create situations where we have to work many, 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 many hours every week just to make ends meet. What you're trading away is your life, and you're trading away all the other things that you want to do with your life when you do this in order to sustain this lifestyle that you've created for yourself. The more complicated you make it, the more of your life you have to trade away. So you can earn this money however you choose. I don't care how you do it. Some people are going to choose real estate investing as the means for bringing in this income on a monthly basis. Some of you are going to use your job or your career to do it. Some of you have put away enough savings to where you can come up with a plan and say, okay, for the next year, I'm going to focus on making meet just for my savings. Some people are going to use unemployment checks, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. I don't care how you have this money coming in. The key is that you need this money coming in consistently, and you need to live within your means. You've got to keep things simple so that the money you do have coming in consistently meets your needs month after month after month. So most Americans are stuck right here in stage two. They're trying to win this game, but they've made it very complicated, and they can't win consistently. They find themselves with their back against the wall, working harder and harder and harder here in stage two, trading their time, trading their lives away. And people who find themselves frustrated here, they try to skip stages 1 and 2. You can't skip stages 1 and 2 and go straight to 3 and 4 and hope to be successful. This is what most people are being taught. Most of the success classes, most of the real estate classes, most any business classes that you see out there being taught, wealth generation classes, they're telling you to skip stage 1 and skip stage 2 and go straight to stage 3 and 4. I'm telling you right now, if you do not have stage 1 and stage 2 under control, you will not be able to be successful in stage 3 and 4. You must win in stage 2 before getting to stage 3. And stage 3 and stage 4 is where wealth is being built. So stage 3 is where you generate excess cash. You cannot generate excess cash until you have been successful in stage 2. Is this making sense, Joe, as I go through this? Am I being clear?
Yeah, I think it is. You're putting it into very clear, simple, understand terms. And, I got to bring this up because I've been thinking about this while the whole time you've been talking. Back in the, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It might have been 10 years ago it came out. And
14 years ago.
14 years ago, okay. That's probably has been one of the most influential books in recent history on people who have bought into the lie of getting into a lot of debt to buy a lot of real estate. And I can tell you that model just does not work. When you understand this and these stages of wealth and understand how simple you're really, if you want to be happy, you need to have a simple life, period. And that just goes against the grain of what that book taught. And I read that book. I took it hook, line, and sinker. I was so excited about it. And it does have some good things in it. But the basic premise of it, that there is good debt and there's bad debt, that does not buy you freedom. It does not buy you freedom. And I appreciated your story too, Steve, of how much, how much freedom you had in 2001, and then 3 or 4 years later, you were still making the same amount of money, but maybe even more. But you had tons of expenses and you had tons of obligations that was not giving you the freedom that you wanted. It does the exact opposite of what you were trying to do. And I also wanted to reiterate the importance of stage 1 and 2. Getting that vision written down is so key, and making sure as you're writing down that vision that you're keeping it simple and you're looking at what's most important to your life, writing that stuff down, and then designing a business that fits into that. I think that's super key. Very good.
And you brought up such a good point, Joe. Along with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's been many others. And you bought in hook, line, and sinker. I bought in hook, line, and sinker, and so have many, many other people. Fortunately, we're coming out on the other side of this right now where so many people have went down that path. And while some people had good experiences with it, the majority, the masses, are realizing that that plan did not work. In fact, Many people are experiencing a lot of pain from having pursued that plan. And it sounds great on paper, which is why so many of us pursue it. It comes across as a very intelligent thing for us to do and for us to pursue, which is, again, another reason why so many of us have went right down that path. And it sounds great, but the reality of the situation, and this is what I was talking about earlier, one thing that is never factored into that is the return on time. It's how much of our time do we have to put into managing those resources. With money being an employee, a dollar bill being an employee, the more of those dollar bills that I have to manage, the more employees I have to manage. The more debt that I'm in, and theoretically this is what leverage is. It's having a whole bunch of employees working against me, and my job is to manage those employees so that they're working harder for me than they are against me. The problem with that is the more of them that I have to manage, the harder I have to work. And that is the thing that people don't think about. They don't realize that, okay, if I've got $10 million in debt, there's 10 million little employees that I have to manage, and I have to manage them well. And when they're not working harder than what they're working against me, and they're not working harder for me, I've got to work harder, or I've got to do something else in order to be able to keep them working hard. And that's no small task. It's not easy like people think it is. So I'm thankful that you brought that point up, because hopefully that helps people put into perspective how important it is that we are able to manage the resources that we have. And just skipping these processes of going right into wealth building when we can't make ends meet any bit of wealth, or if we're able to achieve any form of success there, it's all just going toward paying bills. We never can get ahead. So you got to win in stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 3 is where we begin to generate excess cash, and we can do this when we're meeting our needs in stage 2. Then anything over, above, and beyond that is excess. So the less that we need in stage 2, the quicker we can get to stage 3 and start generating excess cash. And this is so important because this is where we generate chunks of cash to either pay down our debt or to invest into stage 4. Now, you can't generate excess cash if you're losing in stage 2. And this is a desperate move that so many people try to, that they find themselves in. They want to jump to stage 3 because they're not winning in stage 2. You cannot win in stage 3 if you haven't already won in stage 2. You've got to make ends meet. And so the goal of everyone needs to be is I've got to win in stage 2 and to focus on that, not even think about stage 3 and 4 until they are successful in stage 2. So in stage 3, I recommend real estate investing. And, the two things that I have done is wholesaling for quick cash and rehabbing for big cash. Those are titles of 2 of the books that I have written, 2 of the home study courses that I have. And that is where I've made my chunks of cash. Through wholesaling, I make smaller chunks, but I make a whole lot of them. And through rehabbing, I make bigger chunks. But this is where I generate that excess cash that I can begin to invest later. Now, you have to resist the urge to increase your lifestyle in stage 3. It becomes very tempting for people they get to the point where they're winning in stage 2, they do a rehab in stage 3, they make $30,000 on that rehab, and then they want to go out and buy a nicer car or do improvements to their home. And that nicer car and those improvements now all of a sudden are new obligations and responsibilities that they have to consistently maintain. And if they don't do another rehab that makes them $30,000, they're not able to consistently maintain that. Instead, they put themselves in a position where they have to work harder in stage 2 in order to meet these obligations that they thought were going to be easy. So I also want to encourage people, do not go into debt while you're in stage 3, because that's only going to make stage 2 more difficult. Now, I'm going to go back there because I want to just qualify that. If you have opportunities to do a rehab in stage 3 that will make you $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and the only thing getting between you and that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 is some short-term debt that's very manageable, and you've got this slam-dunk deal that's going to make you $40,000, well, don't let borrowing money to make that $40,000 get in the way. We will talk about other ways to hopefully make that happen, and I'm not just giving this out as a license to say, hey, go out and borrow all you want. I don't want anybody to hear that coming from me, because that is not what I'm advocating. But I am suggesting that there is a right time and a right place for disciplined people to use debt wisely. And I don't want people reading too far into that, because I am very much against debt, and that's not me saying, okay, it's okay to borrow. All right, stage 4. Once we can get to stage 3 and start generating excess cash, we can now begin to invest for wealth and income. That excess cash, we can invest it into free and clear income-producing assets, and I want to emphasize that, free and clear. If we take that cash and we use it and then we leverage it in stage 4, we're only creating additional needs in stage 2. Every time we leverage something, theoretically, the assets that we purchase are supposed to be paying themselves off, and we're not supposed to have to work for that money. But if we invest it into a single-family home rental property, we are creating a situation that we now have to begin to put our time into it. We have to manage it. And if it's vacant, we now need to work to earn the income in order to make that payment. So what I'm hopefully getting across here is that these excess chunks of cash that we're generating in stage 3, they should be invested into free and clear income-producing assets. We're talking hard money loans, land contracts. If you're going to do it in rental properties, do free and clear rental properties. Fractionals, which I'm going to talk a little bit about as we go into this webinar, and I'll talk about them in session 2 or 3. We're going to be talking about joint ventures that we can put our money into. You may want to put it into stocks. The beauty is this: you can put your money wherever you choose. It's your money, and you can decide how you want to put it to work for you. And whether it's a little bit or a lot, you can do hard money loans for only $5,000. My recommendation is that you start out with whatever you have. Get your money working for you. Get your excess cash working for you. And in time, what this is going to do, you start small and you trade up. And you can do that with rental properties, going into some cheaper rental properties, and maybe you've accumulated 3 or 4 of them. Now you want to trade up to a bigger property. You might do some small hard money loans, and eventually you get to the point where you can do a larger hard money loan. Just start out small and get in the habit of taking your excess cash and getting it working for you. Your stage 4 income is what's eventually going to set you free so that you don't have to work in stage 2. I want everybody to just pay real close attention to that. You'll be working in stage 2. You'll start earning excess cash in stage 3. And the quicker you take that excess cash and start putting it to work for you, it begins to start earning income that you no longer have to work for in stage 2. So your first goal in stage 4 then is going to be to start replacing that income that you work for in stage 2. And you do that just a little bit at a time. Every additional investment you make into stage 4, that is a free and clear income-producing asset, will take over some of the time that you have to work in stage 2. Stage 4 is where you can begin to increase your lifestyle. This is when you can start buying some of the nicer things, and you're doing this with income that is consistently coming in from stage 4 that you don't have to work for. You want to buy that nicer car? Let your assets pay for that nicer car, not you having to go out there and work harder. You want to move into a nicer home? Let your assets buy that nicer home for you. I recommend paying cash for everything. Let your assets produce the cash that you need to produce the lifestyle that you want. And because ultimately what we want is the freedom. We want to be able to enjoy those lifestyles. We can all live and have pretty nice-looking lifestyles from the outside, but if we have to work our lives away to pay for it, we never get to enjoy it. What sense does it make? But when we do this the right way, and we follow these 4 stages, we can begin to experience it. So my question for all of you is this: are you willing? Are you willing to do what other people are not willing to do? If you're willing to do for 3 years what others are not willing to do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what they will only dream of doing. I heard that presented to me at the beginning of my real estate investing career, going back 13 years ago now. The person who had said that to me used 5 years rather than 3 years. And I will tell you that I have seen this in action numerous times now. And within 2 to 3 years, you can completely flip your life upside down if you will just live with these principles. If for 2 to 3 years you'll sacrifice and not have to have, the big lifestyle now when you can't afford it, but you're willing to sacrifice, live within your means, and focus on building a business that will help you to have that lifestyle. If you're willing to do that debt-free, in 3 years' time, you can experience a lifestyle that other people are only going to dream of. Now, one of the things that I want to just share with you, some of my observations are, my students that are winning in stage 2 are better investors. They do better deals. And one of the reasons why is because they're not desperate. They are consistently winning in stage 2, so now when they evaluate investments that will generate excess cash for them in stage 3, there's no desperation there. They want to take on just the right deals, they make better decisions, and they tend to do better deals. My students who are struggling in stage 2 are not as good of investors because they're always making desperate decisions. They're taking on deals that they should not necessarily be doing because they need to get something coming in. They need a check coming in. And they tend to take on the worst deals and sometimes deals that put them into a worse position than they were in before they got into the deal. So I want to encourage all of you, get yourself to a point where you're winning in stage 2. And it boils down to coming up with a good foundation to put in place. Now, as I approach this debt-free investing model, I want to go back just a little bit and share with you. It was in January of 2006 that I had decided I was never going to borrow money again. and then I was going to focus on building a debt-free investing business. So I had to revamp everything that I was doing because my business at the time revolved 100% around borrowing. The cash that I had was used strictly to make me look good in the eyes of the lender and to maybe put down a down payment here or there so that I could get the rest of the money from them. So I was completely focused on borrowing to build my business. Now I cut that out. I cut it out cold turkey. I had to figure out, how am I going to do this without ever borrowing again? So there was many niches that I could choose from, and all of you need to just focus on choosing what will work for you. There isn't just one way to get this done. There's numerous ways. But for me, I went back to really focusing on wholesaling, which was a big part of my business. Wholesaling does not require any borrowing, so I did that. I did have some cash, and I figured that I would use my cash now to do some deals without borrowing. I started doing joint ventures. I did not have enough cash to fund all of my deals, so I needed to start looking elsewhere to bring in cash in to do my deals. But I was going to do this as a joint venture partnership and not borrow the money. I went back to just really controlling properties, and there's numerous ways that we can control properties, anything from using option agreements to having contingent contracts, just all different ways that we can get control of a property without actually having to buy it, yet we can still profit from it because we control it. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. And then coaching and consulting. By being a coach and teaching other people and sharing the knowledge that I had, I was able to profit from my knowledge. I was able to profit through the relationships that I had with sharing my real estate investing knowledge with others. So my new business model revolved around these things that you see here on the screen, and I had to really just focus on them. So the three primary things I did was I focused my business on wholesaling, joint venturing, and coaching. These three provided for about 95% of my income moving forward once I said, here's my new business model. But I want everybody to understand this. I had come up with a life vision that I wanted to be free again. I wanted to have the freedom to do what I wanted to do. I did not want my business dictating my life. I came up with that vision for my life. I determined how many hours a week I wanted to work, and then I designed a business that would help me to live that lifestyle. So my business focused on joint ventures, it focused on coaching, and it focused on wholesaling. What we're going to talk about in this webinar and the upcoming session is going to be joint ventures, because that is how I have made the majority of my income since I started doing debt-free investing. Now, other types, and these are some of the ways that we can control properties, is through right to first refusal, fractionals, which is a concept of investing in vacation properties and being able to profit. We have designed a model for doing fractionals without going into debt, and it's completely different than the way most people out there pursue fractionals. And I'll go into some detail with that. This webinar is not about fractionals, so I'm not going deep into that, but I will share with you what they're about. And development, and this is taking property and developing it, taking a large maybe farmland and dividing it up into lots, or taking some land, getting it rezoned and making it commercial. Most of the time, those who are really good at this do it without going into debt. They just control the property and they improve its situation through zoning and development, and then prior to ever having to settle on that and take out a loan, they already have buyers in place. So there's many different ways that we can make money in real estate without going into debt. Just a little bit about fractionals. It's vacation property ownership in which you have co-owners who come together. This is not timeshares, and we're going to talk about how to get them done in one of the other sessions. Now, the focus of this entire series will be on joint ventures, and it's a way that I have transitioned from being the borrower to doing deals without making any more payments. And this has evolved tremendously. When I first started doing these, I had some challenges. I was figuring it out. But today, the things that I have learned from joint venturing is something that is being utilized by most of my top students across the country now. Of my top students, most of them do not borrow money anymore. They are focusing on joint ventures. They have bought into this process and they're experienced tremendous prosperity. They work a lot less, they make more money, their businesses are much more manageable, and they have much more time on their hands. Now, one of the keys to successful joint venturing is understanding is that this isn't a partnership. And what I mean by that is it's not a long-term partnership. These are partnerships that we focus on doing one deal with somebody, and that's it. We just do one deal. I do not advocate the long-term partnerships because historically most of them don't work. Instead, we focus on doing partnerships or joint ventures one deal at a time, and that has proven to be extremely successful. You want to identify your niche, and you want to be the best at what you do. And I'll just give you an example of what I mean by that. I have students who I help them to become known as the best rehabber in their area, or they become known as the best home buyer in their area, or the best landlord in their area. But they're focusing on a niche. And that niche can be as narrowed down as the best landlord who caters to handicapped people. The bottom line is you want to identify what it is that you do good in this business, and if you're just getting up and running, the beauty is you get to pick what niche you want to become known for. And, I recommend you get out there and you do a deal or two, figure out what you like about the business, and become known for being the best at what you do. And the other thing that helps us to be successful is having well-thought-out agreements. And my agreements have evolved to where I'm very, very comfortable with them today. When I first started doing this, I would not have shared my agreements with people yet, but we've come a long way with them. I've done enough joint ventures to where I have learned the pitfalls of what you can experience, and we address most of that in the agreements today. And having good agreements really helps with the communication up front. So one final thought for today, and we're going to get this session wrapped up. Joint venturing sometimes scared people who feel like they are leaving profits on the table. When we think of joint venturing, we think of partnerships, you automatically feel like you're giving up an awful lot. And one of the reasons that people like flocking to the bank and borrowing money from the bank is because they think that the money is cheaper. And what I'm going to tell you, that good rehabbers who have experience, those who have really good experience, good rehabbers who have a lot of experience in the business, one of the things that happens with them is that they are able to focus on what it is that they're good at. They're able to focus on rehabbing properties, getting those rehabs done at the right prices, getting them done in a timely fashion. And when they don't have to focus on doing other things to generate income in order to be able to make payments to the bank, they're able to do more deals per year. I also want you to understand that as you begin to move forward and you develop experience with these joint ventures, that just because somebody is your partner does not necessarily mean that they're going to be a 50-50 partner in your transactions. My successful students who are doing this and who have developed track records do 70-30 splits and 60-40 splits with their joint venture partners. They don't give up a full 50%. And they love it. They absolutely love this. One of the things that holds a good rehabber back is they can't take on any more deals because they don't have the capacity to make more payments each month. And by doing this where they can just have a joint venture partner and not have to focus on payments, they are able to do more deals. They're able to manage more projects, and they have the capacity to do more and focus on what they are really good at doing. And I don't think, and I haven't come across too many people that are really good at making payments. That's not where we make our money in this business. And so I want to just have all of you who sit here and think, okay, he's talking about partnering and giving up a portion of our profit. Get over that. We already have track records where we can be more profitable by bringing on joint venture partners to do our deals than we are when we go to the banks and we're making payments to the bank. This is a much more profitable scenario, and as we go through this, you'll begin to understand why. So we're going to wrap up this session on that note. Session 2, what we're going to do is we're going to get into joint venturing and the agreements which will make them work. As we go through all of the agreements and how to put these deals together, you're going to get a real clear understanding of how you can sit here and invest without borrowing a nickel. And when you don't have to make payments every month, and the only thing you have to do is focus on just managing your project well and buying the right properties and getting them to market and picking up your paycheck, life and business becomes a whole lot more fun. So one of the things that I want to encourage all of you, if you've been through this session, you're probably going to have some questions. We're going to have an open Q&A bonus session, and this is for those of you who are getting in now on the early bird special to be able to get in early on this. We are going to take that whole Q&A session, and I'm going to make that a bonus session where you're going to be able to get on the phone with me. You're going to be able to ask any questions that you have. This is probably going to be hours long when we get into this session. So I want you to all to hold on to your questions. For those of you who are getting in after this, you're going to get the benefit of being able to listen in on all the questions that everybody else has had. And so this will be a 5th bonus session that we are going to throw in, but we're going to get through the 4 sessions. Save your questions through those 4 sessions, and I will be there to answer all the questions that you come up with, and we'll take it from there. But that's the end of session 1, and I'm looking forward to joining all of you in session 2 here soon.
That's really good, Steve. Appreciate that so much. And again, guys, we're going to have some more information on that question and answer call, probably down below this video or in one of the tabs on the left. So make sure you are there for that. And we are going to record that. So if you missed it and you can't make it, we will have a recording of that available on the membership site. Thank you, Steve. Man, I'm inspired. I've heard you give that similar presentation, I don't know, 12, 20 times. But it's always good to hear it again and be reminded of that. I picked up several things that I've missed before. That is really, really good stuff. And you're sitting on a gold mine of really incredible information that's going to change a lot of people's lives. It's been changing my life. Excellent. Very good.
Well, Joe, I really appreciate you working with me to get this out to the masses. As you know, I don't know that I've shared it dozens or 20 times, but we need to get the message out. And through this and with this webinar, we're going to be able to get this into the hands of many more people. So I really appreciate you helping me with this. You know that I'm passionate about it, and I really want to see this concept embraced, and I want to see the masses begin to live and experience life unlike any, and stop following the ways that we have done it before. So I thank you, Joe, for helping me with this.
The cool thing, too, now, Steve, is we're putting this all together in one place, which is, I just think this is exciting, and I hope everybody is getting woken up and seeing this for what it really is. So, all right, Steve, we'll hang up here, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, have a great day.
Thanks. Cool, Steve. All right, let me stop the recording here.